Okay, Jennifer, thank
Yep.
you so much for joining us and doing this testimonial for our OCD treatment for the Institute for the Study of Peak States. So let's start at the beginning. So what were your symptoms like before you did this treatment?
Sure. So my symptoms, I think, are pretty characteristic of OCD, which is I had a kind of obsessional thoughts, and which is the O, and the C would be the compulsive stuff. So I'd have obsessions about mostly contamination kind of issues. So worried about that I'm going to get germs, or worried that something's not safe, and then I do compulsive kind of activities to try to contain the fear, try to stop it. So I'd wash my hands a lot. I'd check the doors. I'd make sure my curler was off 10 times, so it's just a lot of looping like that, like the obsessions and then the compulsions to try to manage it. Obsessions, compulsions to try to manage it. But when I did the treatment, I noticed actually that I thought of the symptoms a little bit differently. The symptoms were fear. So I'd suddenly be hit by this intense fear, sort of fear, panic, overwhelm kind of feeling. And then I would get locked into the obsessions while I was in that state.
Mm-hmm.
And the obsessions would be usually past things, like, did I turn the curler off, or did that person touch me, and could have I gotten their germs or whatever, right? So I'd be in this state of heightened fear, and then I'd have these obsessions going on in my head.
Okay.
Round and round. Yeah.
So with having these obsessive compulsive thoughts and behaviors, then how is that generally impacting your life?
Oh, it impacted my life hugely. I think my life was just kind of, I'd be going along fine, and then I'd be hit by a trigger, and then it's like a hurdle. You just get to this hurdle, and then you have to get over the hurdle and stop the trigger, and then you just go on fine for a while, and then you get triggered again. And so it's a lot of interruption to my life.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And had you tried other therapies or other techniques to try and address your OCD symptoms?
Yeah, I've tried many techniques over the years. The one that I found to work the best was cognitive behavioral therapy, but all that does is just teaches you to distract yourself when you get hit by the fear and the obsessive
Mm-hmm.
thinking.
Yeah.
So you force yourself out of it, and then you force yourself to stop doing the compulsions because you're supposed to, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
like a training yourself to not give in as much as you can, but it's still there. It's still always there.
Yeah. Okay. And so then explain from a client's perspective, because you're obviously a peak states therapist as well, but from a client's perspective, what was involved in the OCD treatment?
Sure. It's kind of like a meditative experience. You just kind of go inside yourself, and you follow the instructions that the therapist is telling you. You just go through what they tell you to do. It's a lot of kind of imagination kind of work, but the imagination works to get the results that you're wanting. And so I think the first treatment was approximately 2.5, 3 hours, I would guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept following what the therapist was telling me to do. And at the end, I had the results. And of course, I had to follow up a few times to continue to make sure I cleaned it up.
So you said you've now got the results. So what are your OCD symptoms like now?
So what it did was it stopped the fear feeling. So I don't get that same fear / overwhelm / panic. I just can't really feel that same thing anymore, because it used to be like I was just suddenly hit a wall and I was in this extreme state of fear. I don't feel that anymore.
Right.
It just doesn't happen. I mean, I still feel fear, I still feel panic and overwhelm, but they're I think what normal people without OCD would experience. It's not, doesn't suddenly hit me out of the blue.
Yeah.
For no. And then the obsessions, I don't have those anymore.
Right.
And it's almost like I can't. I've tried to make myself obsess,
Mm-hmm.
like, but I just don't seem to have the mechanism to do it anymore
Okay.
the same way I used to. I can't get myself in that loop anymore. And then of course the compulsions, I don't really have an urge because I'm not obsessing about something. I'm not worried about it so much. Then the compulsive aspect just sort of dropped off on its own.
Mm-hmm.
I would say by about 80%, that I would not say that this takes away anxiety 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I would say around 80%.
Yeah. And
Partly
then that makes it manageable now as opposed to it just overtakes you.
absolutely. And I think what I feel now is more what people without anxiety or OCD feel is you have moments of life where you do get stressed or anxious, or you do have worries, or but it's manageable. Yeah, it's yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I would say to people thinking about doing the treatment. Like aim for, in my experience so far anyways, is aim for 80%. And that's a life changer. 80% is a life changer.
Yeah.
Yes. My life is not oriented around fear anymore.
So you're a psychologist. Who would you recommend this treatment for?
Sure. So I think people who have OCD symptoms, so the obsessions and compulsions, but I think that anyone who has the obsessional quality this would work for is my guess, which is people with generalized anxiety disorder, people with OCD, people with probably any kind of anxiety related problem where anxiety is just exaggerated beyond what most people typically experience, because it's the obsessions and the fears that this seems to take care of.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Is there anything else that you want to say about this OCD process and your experience?
Just that it's been incredibly helpful. I was just talking to my husband yesterday, and it's like I had been living, like I said, you try to go on, you live your life, and then you're hit with another kind of crisis, which just comes out of the blue. Could be someone shakes your hand, and then it's uncontrollable. It's just this thing that comes out of the blue, and it's just there, and you have to get over that hurdle, but there's just not the hurdles anymore. So life is just so much easier to not have to manage that all the time.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I'm sure providing this testimonial will help those with similar type of symptoms, kind of help them figure out whether this treatment might be helpful for them as well. Thank you.
Great. You're welcome.